Kepada Bapak, Ibu, Saudara-saudari sedharma yang berbahagia, semuanya salam sejahtera dan bahagia. Daja Jishang, Omitofo. Fo Guangsan Institut Tungzen Indonesia yang dikenal dengan ITZI kembali hadir untuk Anda semua dalam rangkaian program ceramah Sinyang Ichuanzhen, pewaris keyakinan di tahun 2022. Adalah merupakan berkah keselamatan, kebahagiaan untuk kita semua. Sinyang Ichuanzhen, pewaris keyakinan, dengan penuh semangat, bangga dan bahagia dapat mengundang Venerable Question. Venerable Question berasal dari Sydney, Australia. Lulus dengan hasil terbaik di bidang pendidikan dari University of Canterbury, Selandia Baru. Kemudian ia melanjutkan studi pasca sarjana dengan meraih gelar MA dalam studi Buddhis dari Universitas Fuquan. Beliau menjalani pelatihan monastik di Universitas Sunlin dan kemudian memutuskan untuk menjadi anggota Sangha di Fuquangshan. Dan saat ini beliau bertugas di Wihara Silai, Amerika Serikat. Venerable Question, seorang yang gigih, rajin, bekerja keras, pemeditasi, tekun dalam pelatihan diri. Sejak kecil, beliau sudah mengenal Fuquangshan, membantu di Wihara Nantian di Australia, kemudian melanjutkannya di Fuquangshan, Selandia Baru. Beliau juga merupakan bagian dari Fuquangshan ITC, tim penerjemah yang membantu menerjemahkan bahasa Mandarin ke bahasa Inggris. Beliau sering memberikan ceramah Dharma bagi para pemuda-pemudi di 5 benua dan juga merupakan guru pembimbing untuk pemuda-pemudi dan mengenalkan humanistik Buddhisme bagi pemuda-pemudi secara internasional. Dan pada hari ini, Bapak, Ibu, Saudara-saudari semuanya, sekali lagi adalah berkah, kebanggaan, dan kebahagiaan yang luar biasa untuk kita semua. Di tahun 2022 ini, Fuquangshan Institut Tungzen Indonesia ITZI dalam forum Sinyang Ichuanzhen, pewaris keyakinan bersama Venerable Question dengan tema Buddha Dharma dalam kehidupan sehari-hari, di mana beliau terinspirasi dari Sutra Intan sebagai landasan mental bagi kita untuk merenungkan secara mendalam tentang realitas kehidupan dan apa yang diperlukan untuk berhasil dalam segala hal yang kita lakukan. Sehingga jelas, Sutra Intan dapat dipraktikkan secara praktis dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari. Semoga apa yang disampaikan oleh beliau dapat bermanfaat bagi kita semua. Mari kita dengarkan bersama Venerable Question. Terima kasih. Omitofo.
Auspicious blessings to all. Today, I'd like to share with you inspirations for everyday living based on the wisdom of the Diamond Sutra. I'm sure that for most of us, we have had the opportunity to read or chant the Diamond Sutra, but do we really understand the message it is trying to convey? Do we know how to apply these wise teachings in our everyday lives so that we may be happy and successful? These are the questions that we will be working through today. Human beings are aligned to seeking happiness and success in life and freedom from suffering. We just need to look at our own lives. Think about the things that we do for that sense of happiness, and think of those things we do to find freedom from suffering. In seeking happiness, some of us go for shopping sprees and some of us go for entertainment, while others go for spas and massages. And then to end the suffering we feel is surrounding us, we try to hide away from such suffering and then we run away from situations which we think may bring suffering. But there's one catch to the way we do things. With conventional happiness, it is just a short experience of something which gives momentary pleasure. And then with what we truly want to find in life is actually ultimate happiness. And this ultimate happiness is found when we are able to see clearly and live in a way based on this clarity of mind. So we can say that for a common person, conventional happiness is something that we seek outside of ourselves. We try to find things that we like and turn away from things we don't like. But with ultimate happiness, instead of going outwards, we actually go inwards, and then we unlock the happiness which is already innate in us. So this innate happiness is able to be unlocked as we see life clearly. The way we do so is to take on the Buddhist worldview as we engage in life and Buddhify all aspects of it to bring about this sustained and true happiness. But before we can even do that, it is important that we identify the obstacles to happiness, and that is to look deeply at our own human condition and see what is blocking it, and then we try to free ourselves of the shackles. And the way we do so is by maintaining a mindset that leads to true happiness and inner peace. So in finding this mindset, we will turn to the wisdom of Venerable Master Xing Yun's interpretation of the practice of the Diamond Sutra in daily life as guidelines. Before we explore the wisdom of the Diamond Sutra, let's take a moment to have a look at its title. In Sanskrit, the title for Diamond Sutra is Vajrachedika Prajnaparamita Sutra. Vajrachedika means the lightning bolt cutter, or that cuts like a diamond. And then Prajna means wisdom. It refers to the omniscient insight that allows one to understand things as they really are. And Parami means perfection. And Ta means gone to the other shore, or simply transcendence or success in secular terms. So if we want to interpret the entire Sanskrit title of the sutra, then we can consider it the Sutra of the perfection of transcendental wisdom that cuts like a diamond bolt. And from this idea of cutter, we see it as the mental attitude or the weapon that cuts through the illusions of the world to get to the ultimate reality. And once we reach this ultimate reality, we live accordingly. So there's three aspects of this title. The first aspect is the analogy. So it's that cuts like a diamond, referring to prajna. And then when we do that, we see things as they truly are. And lastly, we reach success. So coming back to the idea of delusion, let's have a look at the analogy of sugar. I'm sure that all of us put sugar in our food because it tastes nice. We eat a lot of sweets, we eat a lot of chocolates, and we eat a lot of ice cream, and all the different types of sweets that make us feel happy temporarily, thinking that this is a very comfortable sensation. But sugar, as we all know, is a poison. Our bodies, according to science, does not need too much sugar. And indeed, if we take artificial sugar, it's superfluous to our needs because sugar can be found naturally in different sources of food. So, since sugar is a poison that tastes sweet, we are numbed to the fact that it is poison. And then we continually eat sugar for that little bit of a sugar trip that it gives us. So without knowing it, we become attached to the sugar and we keep eating it until the point we develop elements of the body, for example, diabetes and high blood pressure and so forth. And all this is because we fail to realize the poison that sugar is. And in life, there are many things, the way we think, the way we see things, which actually lead us down the wrong path. And as a Buddhist, it is important to understand the source of delusion and work to sever delusion at its core. Now that we have come to an understanding of the meaning of the title of the Diamond Sutra, let's take a moment to understand the reason why this sutra was taught in the first place. This reason can be found in chapter 2 of the 32 chapters of the Diamond Sutra. And it goes like this. World Honored One, when good men and good women commit themselves to perfect enlightenment, how should they stand? And how should they tame their minds? So in other words, it can be meant, what attitude should a person aspiring towards enlightenment for the betterment of all sentient beings overcome delusions and afflictions of their minds? This brings us to the next question. What is the cause of delusion? From the Buddhist perspective, it is caused by none other than the misunderstanding of the nature of I. It's all about perspective. Think about it. Everyone thinks that the self is the most important. Just say we are involved in a car accident. We would be quite devastated and think to ourselves, why us? Why us? Why is it me that has to be able to endure the pain of a car accident? But just say other people win the lottery. We'd be thinking, why them and not me? Why would they have the chance to win the lottery, whereas I don't? And then, of course, dissatisfaction arises. So life is a dilemma. Things we don't like, we try to distance ourselves away from. And things we like, we think that we deserve it. But in fact, life is not really like that. Because essentially, all beings are the same. So why do we deserve better than others when we are essentially of the same nature? This brings us to the next point. The reason why we don't understand this I more clearly than we should is because of our clinging to the factors of experience. So from a Buddhist viewpoint, the whole notion of I or self-identity comes from different factors. And then when we cling on to any of these factors or cling on to the whole of the factors, we tend to see this self as more unchanging, permanent, and autonomous than it really is. And this has far-fetching influences on the way we deal with life and whether we can find happiness or not. So let us look at the 5 factors of experience here. First of all, we have form. So form are anything that is physical around us. Okay, so it can be people, it can be objects, and so forth. And then our sensory objects are the sights, sounds, smell, taste, and touch, which is received through our senses of eye, ear, nose, tongue, and touch, and so forth. So when we come into contact with the outside world, we give rise to some reactions. So this leads on to the second part of experience, and this is sensation. At this point, when we come into contact, we give rise to the reaction of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So this is quite straightforward. It is usually based on our human instincts of survival. So things which are pleasant we go towards. Unpleasant things are things we try to do away from. And then neutral experiences, we don't really pay attention. Although when we don't pay attention, it also has far-reaching implications on the way we look at life. We see it as more permanent. And then with perception, it's about recognizing things. So just say we look at a cup. We don't know it's a cup yet. The first thing we do is sense it. Okay, so it's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So a cup, for most people, is something which is pleasant because a cup holds liquid which we like to drink. So naturally we feel it's pleasant. Then we perceive it as, oh yes, we flip through our mental index cards and say, this is what I have used before, and what I have used before I have learned is a cup. So just like this, we recognize this as a cup. But the next thing that happens is that our mind gives rise to volitions, movement of mind. So we actively go towards things that we like, and then we turn away from things that we dislike. And then we give rise to emotions of greed, and then we give rise to emotions of hatred, and then all the different types of emotions related to these two main reactions to phenomenon. So what happens when our mind moves a lot? It means that we are led by the nose by all the different sensations around us, and we cannot be the masters of our own minds. And then when that happens, we are moved towards suffering when we cannot seek the things we like, or when we lose the things we like. And then when we seek for the things we like, we can never have enough. And that also leads to dissatisfaction. So from here we see that the five skandhas and the attachment to these brings us to the wrong direction. And that is to dissatisfaction. And consciousness is just bare awareness. It is because of consciousness that all the other different factors of experience come about. So when we see that all these factors are more real than they really are, then of course we give rise to a very steadfast mindset. That's good, that's bad, I like that, I don't like that. And then we're moved back and forth by such misunderstanding of the meaning of this sense of I. And then this is not enough. After becoming attached to experiences, we go further. We proliferate this suffering by drawing this ego outwards. So we start saying, that's my cup, don't touch it. Okay, if you touch it, I'll get angry. Or, I don't like that, don't come near me, because if you come near me, I don't like it. Or, oh, that should be mine. Why don't I have it now? I should have it. And then, because of this constant seeking and turning away from, our minds are never at peace. And then, of course, because of this, suffering is endless. And the way to break through the erroneous affirmation of substance or selfhood is by going through negation that the Buddha has presented us, to break through these notions and to understand the emptiness of self, phenomena, merit, and the Dharma. So let us have a look at examples of non-abiding as taught by the Buddha. Therefore, O Shibuti, the aspirants to awakening, the great heroes, should generate a pure mind in this way. They should not generate a mind which stands in form, should not generate a mind which stands in sounds, smells, taste, touches, and things. They should stand nowhere and yet generate the mind. So what does this mean? What it means is that as we go on to practice Buddhism, we give rise to a mind that is not attached to things which are inherently impermanent. So things that come and go, we should see them as natural phenomena. Things are destined to change all the time. And when we see this, our life changes a lot. So the Buddha tries to break through our attachments to the wrong understandings of self through negation. So let's take the example of apple. Apple is not apple. We only call it apple. So think about it. When we were young babies, we would not have learned what apple is. We may have only learned what the color red is, and we may not have even learned what the shape round or circle is. So just like this, our concepts are accumulated as we learn throughout our lives. But then when we become too attached to these concepts, we're not really understanding the true nature of things. And the same is true for life. We start labeling things. That's my friend. That's not my friend. Okay, so when we have friends, we try to stay close to them. When we have enemies, we try to stay away from them. But in essence, we are all human beings. There's no difference between me and you. We all have the same eyes. We all have the same ears and nose and so forth. So there's really no difference between me and you. Okay? But we tend to give concepts and labels to things, and we become attached to these things. And then the Buddha further goes, Shibhuti, that which is said to be all phenomena is not all phenomena. And that is why it is called all phenomena. So we can also understand that because everything is changing all the time, and everything is because of different causes and conditions coming together to make a thing what it is, then we can really understand that things are empty because of a self-determining nature. And because everything is empty, everything has unlimited potential. So let's take the example of a tree. A tree is not really a tree. It is only a tree because it is made of a seed, and the seed is nurtured by sunlight, water, warmth, and the soil. And then as it grows, it requires wind to stimulate it, and then of course water and sunlight to let it continue to grow into a tree. So we can see from the example of a tree that it requires many causes and conditions for it to arise. And the same is true for us. We have our parents to give birth to us. We have food, water, and nutrients, all these provided by the farmers and those who work in the food industry and those who work in all different fields to allow us to sustain life. And then, of course, we needed our teachers, our mentors to train us and teach us and so forth. So we can see that nothing can be independent of other things. And when we understand that everything is dependent on everything, then our mind becomes more flexible because we are not so much attached to things as we want things to be. And then when we see that everything is changing, we also turn around and see the inherent emptiness of all things. And emptiness is unlimited potential. Take the analogy of a bank. Just say you have a bank in front of you, and you see in the vault a whole room full of $100 notes. So the first thing we do normally is to try to grab onto as many notes as possible, thinking that we're going to get rich, right? But then, of course, you could take a step back and think, why not I let go of all the notes and just sit back and relax? And then you realize the entire vault of notes is yours. And the same is true with life. The more we are unattached to things, the more everything comes to us. And then the more opportunities we grasp in life and make the most of as we do so without attachment. Let's have a look at this thing in front of us. What is the very first thought that comes to mind? For most people, they'll say, oh, it's a black dot. But someone who truly understands dependent origination will say that this black dot only exists because of all the white space around it. If there was no white space and if the whole screen was black, then how could there be a round dot. And likewise, if we fail to see the entirety of the picture in front of us, then we're not seeing the true vastness of emptiness. And this true vastness is equal to our potential to succeed. So from this we see two things. True success is what we consider the understanding of emptiness in its fullest. And the secret to success is the wisdom required for that, and that is prajna wisdom. So now that we understand that all phenomena lack an inherent self, and that all phenomena are transient, it means that we have a mind that does not abide in anything and thus has unlimited potential for what it sets out to do. And this prajna wisdom is the secret of both worldly and transcendental success, because worldly or secular success and spiritual success are no different from one another, because both are bound by the law of dependent origination. Venerable Master Xing Yun explains that the understanding of true emptiness gives rise to wondrous existence. And he also reminds us that our pockets need to be empty for us to put things into it. Our cup needs to be empty for us to pour the liquid of our choice in it. And likewise in life, our attachments to the wrong understanding of I needs to be emptied for us to be able to open ourselves to the vast expanse of potential. And now that we know the secret to success is the understanding of emptiness, which leads to potentiality, then of course we need to take a step further and see what Venerable Master Xing Yun has to say about how we put things into practice. So Venerable Master reminds us that from the Diamond Sutra, we should be inspired to give without notion, to give without attachment to self, other, and gift. And this leads to the development of unlimited merits. He also reminds us that we need to be able to liberate beings or help beings with no notion of self or other. And this leads to unsurpassed wisdom and compassion. He also reminds us that we need to live without abiding in anything, and this leads to real freedom. And finally, we should be cultivating without wanting to attain something, as this is real attainment. So let us look at the first point, to give without notions. So the Diamond Sutra states, "Moreover, O Subhuti, an aspirant to awakening should not stand in things when engaging in giving gifts. That is, not stand in forms, not stand in sounds, not stand in smells, and not stand in tastes, and not stand in touch, and not stand in things." Why? If an aspirant to awakening does not stand in appearances when giving gifts, then merits will be inconceivable. So, it is actually quite a simple thing. If we're attached to the giver, the gift, and receiver, we bear a lot of pain as we give away our prized possessions because we feel that I am going to give someone something, and then when I give someone something, I lose something, and that person gains. And it becomes very difficult to find happiness in giving. But then if we take a step back and take away this attachment to me giving this gift to someone else, then of course it becomes so natural and so easy. And then of course the more we give, the more we're happy. And this works on two levels. Internally, this happiness comes about because we're lessening our attachment to this sense of I. And then externally, the measure of success in life is not really how much we can gain for ourselves, but how much we can contribute to society and what we can do for others. So just like this, in a dual fashion, by giving without attachment to giver, gift, and receiver, we can find true happiness, and then it just grows and grows. So just say you're at your temple. Take a moment and try this once in a while to truly let go of the notion of giver, gift, and receiver, and just offer help as soon as you have the opportunity to do so, or when other people need your help. So when the Venerables ask you to sweep the floor, without this idea of me having to sweep the floor for the Venerable, if you just do it with a mind just of freedom, then of course this happiness really grows. And the same is when we give material gifts to others as well. The more we give, the more happy we are. The more happy we are, of course, the more peaceful we are. And then continuing on with this passage, Subhuti addresses the awakened one, saying, O world-honored one, how do aspirants to awakening not acquire merit? O Subhuti, the merit made by aspirants to awakening should not be grasped at. Therefore, it is taught that they do not acquire merit. So this brings us to the second level of giving, and this particularly is true for Buddhists. So most Buddhists would want to engage in generosity out of the expectation of merit so that they'll have a good rebirth. But even the whole idea of merit in the first place is something that comes natural, and we should not even seek it. So this story brings us to Dharma and his interaction with Liang Wudi. So one day, Liang Wudi was very happy because, as we know, Emperor Liang is a very devout Buddhist. He was the person who was the reason why Emperor Liang repentance ceremony was established in the first place. So Emperor Liang was like, Bodhidharma, I have done so many good deeds in my life. I've supported the monasteries in many ways. Do I have merit? Or did I accrue merit? And then Bodhidharma was like, no, you did not have any merit. You did not create any merits. And of course, Emperor Liang did not understand this point, so he was very upset. But from this, we see that when we give, we need to give unconditionally. And then when we are unconditionally giving, we are actually creating merit which is beyond worldly merit. So we should see this practice of giving as not a business transaction limited to rewards, because it's not this. It goes beyond it. Okay, when we give without notion, then of course our rewards are actually boundless as well. So this brings us to the understanding that when we give with notion, we can only have worldly rewards, merits. But then when we take away the notions or become less attached to these notions of self, giver, and gift, then of course, what we really accrue is transcendental rewards in the form of virtue. So it is important in our daily lives, especially when we practice Buddhism, to just do things for the sake of doing things and without expectation of any reward whatsoever. So this is the beauty of Buddhism. The more we give, the more our minds are expansive. And the more our minds are expansive, the more happier we become and the less calculative we are with others. And this is the source of true happiness. During the Buddha's time, the Buddha and Ananda went on their alms procession. And as they walked along a road, they came across a group of children playing with a sandcastle. And these children would play pretending the making or cooking of oatmeal, and they were very happy. And all of a sudden, when these children saw the Buddha and Ananda approaching, they were ecstatic, they were very happy. So they quickly took the oatmeal porridge that they were cooking and offered it to the Buddha as offerings of alms. And then, of course, seeing this, the Buddha was very happy and received this offering of oatmeal. But in fact, what it actually was just sand. And then, of course, Ananda was quite bedazzled but did not say anything. So after the Buddha very joyfully received the offering of oatmeal, he went on his way. And then after a while, Ananda, being a very respectful disciple of the Buddha, asked, Buddha, just then the children were quite naughty. They gave you sand as food offering. Why did you receive it? And the Buddha was like, don't say that, Ananda, don't say that. The children used utmost sincerity to offer me this meal of oatmeal. And of course, because of this, I very happily and joyfully received this offering. In fact, because these children used a pure mind to make an offering, the child that offered me the porridge will one day become King Ashoka, a great king of a kingdom. And then the children playing around him will become the ministers of King Ashoka. So from this story, we see that it's very important when we give, not to give with attachment and to give with sincerity to those who we have affinity with. The next point of practice that Venerable Master Xing Yun reminds us of is to liberate beings without notion of self and other. And this liberation we talk about is quite broad in definition. So in our daily lives, if we can take away the fear of others, then we are liberating them. If we are giving them faith in the Dharma, we are liberating them. If we are able to give people confidence, and we are also liberating them, because liberating has the notion of taking people away from suffering or relieving them of suffering. So of course we know that there are many ways to do so. We just have to look at the situation in Ukraine right now. By giving people daily necessities, we are actually liberating them from the sufferings of just pretty much human existence and survival. And just like this, little bit by little bit, we're liberating them from suffering. And then of course we can go further and take away people's fear by helping them understand their life better and teaching them how to do things better. So there are many ways to do so. But if we are attached to the self, and when we are attached to our own views, we are not really truly trying to understand the needs of others. So when we don't really know the needs of others, we're not going to be able to truly liberate them from their issue. So just say someone is fearful of driving. If we do not take time to understand the reason why they are fearful of driving, we may just do things according to what we think is the reason. So just say the true reason is because of a phobia caused by a previous accident, and then we don't realize this and we say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to drive properly so you're not fearful. This is not going to happen. So basically, if we see this situation through the eyes of others, we will take the labels away from this person and then truly and sincerely listen to the needs of this person and then help this person. So if this person's phobia is of the car accident, then of course we counsel them to overcome their fear by seeing that one experience does not dictate their lives forever, because everything keeps changing. So there are many instances in life that it pays to take away labels from others before we help them. So we need to take away the labels of, I feel pity for that person because I'm superior, that person is lesser than me, so I feel pity for that person. Okay, even the label of pity already causes a sense of arrogance that we're better than them. Or sometimes when we don't really understand the cultural backgrounds of that person and try to use the way we see the world and try to help them in that way, then of course we're labeling them as different from us and lacking the cultural norms that we're used to, and then we're not really helping them. According to chapter 17 of the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha said to Shibhuti, when good men and good women initiate the mind to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, they should give rise to a mind like this. I should liberate all sentient beings, and as I liberate them, I should know that there really are no sentient beings to be liberated. And why is this? If a bodhisattva has a notion of self, notion of others, notion of sentient beings, or notion of longevity, then he is not a bodhisattva. And why is this, Shibhuti? In truth, there is no phenomenon of initiating the mind to Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi. So what this tells us is that when we set out to help others, we don't really think, okay, I'm going to help that person, I am helping that person. Because in essence, the only person who can truly help oneself is oneself. So to be able to let go of the attachment to the concept of me helping others, we're less prone to hold prejudice against others. So just look at Venerable Master Xing Yun. When Venerable Master Xing Yun was establishing Foguan-san, he was actually going through many hardships, especially during the early years. The funding for the construction of Foguan-san was constantly a struggle because in the early days of the development in Taiwan, of course, the economic situation was not as good as it is now. And even during times of economic hardship, Venerable Master knew that for Buddhism to be able to prosper, his disciples needed to be educated well so that they can have a lot of influence on society. And just like this, the early disciples, just like Venerable Tzu-Zhuang, Venerable Tzu-Hui, and Venerable Tzu-Rong, and so forth, were sent to Japan to study at a time where Foguan-san was struggling to keep up with the finances. So if Venerable Master was attached to the idea of me helping the disciples, and at a time where there was no money to take even money for food and give it to his disciples to go and study, I'm sure it would not have been easy. But because Venerable Master was not attached to the idea of me and you, but saw the importance of the task at hand and did it selflessly, then of course he did so successfully. And now we have the Dharma in the 5 continents because of his early training of his prominent disciples who had gone to establish many things for Buddhism and accomplish great feats. So this is a very good example of how Venerable Master does not attach to anything as he helps people. And this is true for life as well. So when we try to help others, it is important that we are not too attached to this notion of that person needing help, but just helping that person as we very sincerely try to understand the need. And then when we help others, actually when other people become happy because of the lack of suffering, then we of course become happy as well, because this happiness is viral, it spreads. And then the more people we help in life, the more happy we become. So true happiness truly comes to us when we are selflessly giving ourselves to others. The third point of practice is living without abiding. So according to chapter 18 of the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha said to Shibhuti, the Tathagata fully knows and fully sees the mind of sentient beings in all of these worlds. And how can this be? The Tathagata has said that all minds are not minds, and that thus they are called minds. And why is this so? Shibhuti, the mind of the past cannot be obtained. The mind of the present cannot be obtained. And the mind of the future cannot be obtained. So what this means is the past has gone. So we should not dwell in the past because it brings no future. We cannot dream about the future too much because the future has yet to come. But what we should do is be present in the moment without attachment to it. So in our very busy lives, during the day we could probably be an employee in a company. But then, of course, as we come home to the present moment, we are a son or daughter to the parents, or we're probably parents to our children. And then the future, which is probably tomorrow, has not yet come. So it doesn't really matter. So what this means is, in our very busy lifestyle with so many roles to fill, it is easy to grasp and become attached to certain aspects of this timeline of life. And then when we are stuck in the past, we're not really seeing the potential and hope in the present. And then when we're focused too much about the future, we're not living life steadfastly. So what this means is, in life, there are many things that come to us. There are the different things that happen. We have praise, we have ridicule, we have defamation, we have honor, we have gain, loss, sorrow, and joy. In Buddhism, we call this the 8 winds. And sometimes when people praise us, we become attached to it. So after praise happens, we keep becoming attached to that praise, and it just makes us temporarily happy. But then when new opportunities come to become even more successful, because we're too caught up in our own good doings and praise, it actually limits us, right? So that's why we say we should not always dwell in praise, because there's always room for improvement. And the same is for ridicule and defamation. Like when someone says something bad about us, we try to grasp onto it. We don't let go because we get angry. And then this angry burns us. The more we think about it, the more angry we get, and the less we can let go. And even though there are so many opportunities in the present moment to do good things and become successful, we're burdened by our attachment. The same is true for gain, loss, sorrow, and joy. Things that we want, we try to grasp onto. Things that we don't like, we still have a grudge against it, but it just doesn't go away. So either way, if we are attached to the past or the future, then of course, unfortunately, we won't be happy. So that is why Venerable Master reminds us that we need to really live without abiding. So this also has to do with time management. I'm sure that a lot of us want to do well in life, and a lot of us want to manage time well. But if we reflect on our own lives, many a times we're not really focused and mindful of the present moment. So we go through life always on autopilot mode. So just say we drive to work. When we're driving to work, we're not really enjoying the ride from our home to our workplace, because we're thinking about the meetings we're going to have. We're thinking about all the problems that will potentially come. And then when we come to our workplace, we're always trying to do things ahead of time, and then we're never focused on the present moment. So just like this, the whole day becomes automatic and without truly applying the mind to anything. But Venerable Master Xing Yun is not like that. Venerable Master Xing Yun is an expert at time management. And the reason why he's an expert at time management is because he is not abiding in anything at all. When it's time to do something, he will do it with utmost sincerity and with the fullness of his mind. And when that thing is complete, then he'll move on to the next thing. And just like this, he's able to manage his time effectively. So Venerable Master Xing Yun during his early days was very busy, because he was traveling back and forth from Kaohsiung to Taipei to Taichung and all over Taiwan to promote the Dharma. And because he had a very busy schedule, he really did not have any time to prepare for classes, let alone prepare for recordings for broadcast. So Venerable Master had shared with us that the way he makes good use of time is to really just apply the mind 100% to every single task he's doing and just letting go. So that is the reason why the Venerable Master is able to prepare for a broadcast 5 minutes before the occasion. Think about it. Are we able to do so? If only we are able to live without abiding, then perhaps we're able to use the mind effectively and in a way which brings success in everything we do. The fourth point of practice is to cultivate without attainment. As chapter 22 of the Diamond Sutra states, Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World Honored One, the Buddha attained Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi, yet nothing was attained. So it is, so it is. There is not even the slightest Dharma that can be attained in Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi, and this is why it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhi." So what this means is, as Buddhists, we tend to want to attain things when practicing. For example, we say, I'm going to chant the Heart Sutra how many times? I'm going to chant the Great Compassion Dharani how many times? For more wisdom, okay, for more compassion, for more so and so and so and so. Okay? So we're always trying to practice to attain something. But sometimes when we do so, although it is an expedient means towards the path of success in our practice of Buddhism, it's probably also good to try to not be too attached to the attainment of things through practice. So this brings us to the story of a devotee who was so pious that he wanted to carve a Buddha statue. And after spending a lot of effort carving a very nice looking and very dignified Buddha statue, he placed this Buddha statue on his altar. And then, of course, he lit incense to make an offering to the Buddha statue. But unfortunately, because the door to his house was open, the smoke of the incense was actually blowing away from the direction of his Buddha statue to the other Buddha statues. And of course, when this devotee saw this, he was not happy. So what he did was he took the incense, carved holes into the Buddha's nose, and placed the incense right under the nose, wanting the Buddha to receive his blessings. So just like this, we can see that it is a dilemma for most Buddhists who try to want to attain things as we practice Buddhism. It just doesn't happen that way. When we come to the temple and become a volunteer, we do so because this is what is meant of a good Buddhist. It is not because we want to gain something out of it. We live the life of a humanistic Buddhist because essentially all sentient beings are the same. We are one because we all share the same Buddha nature. So in essence, we're all brothers and sisters under this big umbrella of this world. And because of this, it is our duty to be nice to others. It is our duty to practice compassion to others. But in doing so, we should not expect anything in return, because when we have this understanding that I do something for a result or a reward, then of course our boundless mind becomes limited. We are limiting our boundless mind, our boundless happy mind, by setting boundaries. That is something I do for a particular result. Our mind is limited to this result. But then we let go of the notion of this result and let go of this understanding that we do something for a purpose, then our minds return to the vastness it is. So this is why humanistic Buddhism is important. It means that the focus of our practice is not on ourselves. This is really interesting. The more we are able to focus on the greater good of humanity and others, the less selfish we are. The less selfish we are, the more boundless the mind becomes. The more boundless our minds become, the more happier we become. So this is the beauty of practicing Buddhism through the way of humanistic Buddhism. It is to be able to see the true nature of reality and align our minds and actions towards this reality. And the second aspect of cultivating without attainment is not being attached to the signs of success in cultivation. This brings us to the story of a young businessman who had a short temper and always scolded the mother for not doing things the way he wants the mother to. So the story goes like this. One day, this young businessman went to the temple to pray for the blessings of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. So kneeling before the statue of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, he was seeking, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, please give me success in my business. Please give me material success. Please allow me to make a lot of money. And then upon hearing this, an old monk came out and said to this young businessman, do you really want to see the real Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva? Do you really want to receive the true blessings of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva? And hearing this businessman was very happy. So he actually listened intently to the old monk. And then this old monk said, all you have to do is walk back in the direction home to home, and along the way, you'll meet an old lady who wears her shoes the wrong way round and who wears clothes very shaggily. And if you see such a person, that person is a Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. So this businessman was over the moon, he was happy, and he quickly made his way back home. And then as he reached the door to his house, he was very angry for some reason because he was not able to get in. So he actually hit the door, and when the mother opened the door, he was very short-tempered and started to scold the mother. But after a while, he stopped and thought to himself, didn't the monk say that Avalokitesvara would be in the form of an old lady wearing shoes the wrong way round and wearing clothes shaggily? And then when he looked at his mother, realized that this lady that the old monk was referring to was Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, he immediately prostrated before the mother. What this means is, as we practice Buddhism is not about this seeking of some sublime image or sublime attainment of a particular point of cultivation. Cultivation is in every single moment of our waking lives. And bodhisattvas and Buddhas are just around us. It's a matter of, are we able to let go of this attachment to our notions of this ideal state of being? Because in actual fact, all those people around us, all those Mother Teresas, all those Venerable Master Xing Yuns, all those bodhisattvas, all those venerables who are serving sentient beings selflessly, they are actually just like Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. And when we can see this innate Buddha in all sentient beings, we are bound to love and respect all sentient beings equally. And this is actually true attainment, to see the true nature of all sentient beings. And when we see the true nature of all sentient beings, we are less able to become calculative to one another. We are also able to transcend the bickering that happens between people and then really work for the betterment of not just ourselves, but for everyone. So this brings success not only in our personal lives, but even in the workplace. I'm sure that colleagues will like people who are not calculative. Colleagues will like people who are warm and compassionate to them. So like this, if we can cultivate without this notion of attainment, then every single waking moment of our lives are opportunities to practice. And every opportunity to practice means that we can see the oneness of all sentient beings. So from Venerable Master's interpretation of the Diamond Sutra, we can see that by giving rise to a mind free of attachments to self and concepts, we are actually allowing the mind to enjoy the vastness, the expanse of potentiality that we are innately endowed with. And when our minds are completely free, we can live our lives according to this wisdom and do the required things to bring about success, not only in our own lives, in terms of our careers, family life, and so forth, but also on a greater note. It also means that we can give rise to this mind for the betterment of all sentient beings. And then, like this, of course, we can really truly reach the full potential of this human nature. So in short, we can summarize Venerable Master's inspirations from the Diamond Sutra as to use the transcendental mindset to practice in the worldly situation. Okay, so it really means that we need to always be able to see the true reality of things and not become attached to only certain aspects of this truth. And when we open our minds to the vast expanse of the universe, then we truly become happy and successful. So in short, by giving without notion, we have unlimited merits and virtues. By liberating beings without notion of self and other, we can truly develop unsurpassed compassion and truly be of help to others. And when we are able to live without abiding, then we can find real peace and happiness in life. And then when we can cultivate without attainment, we can truly find success. This brings us to the end of this session on the inspirations of the Diamond Sutra for daily practice based on the wisdom of Venerable Master Xing Yun. I hope that it has benefited you, and I hope that you are able to take this secret of success and apply it to all aspects of life. So just remember, as long as we take this I away from me and you, we become selfless. When we are selfless, our minds are boundless, and we are able to see things with clarity. When we're able to see things with clarity, we are able to live in accordance to this clarity and bring about happiness and success, not only in our lives, but also in our spiritual lives, and that we're able to bring a lot of benefit to all sentient beings. With this, I'd like to extend my blessings to all, and I wish you a wonderful course over the semester. 阿弥陀佛。
慈悲喜舍遍法界，习福结缘利人天，禅净戒恨平等忍，惭愧感恩大愿心。
代替责骂，这就是佛经说的。
虽然已经离开我们2600年了，但是